Good morning, everybody. Happy Thursday to you. It is March 6, 2025, and I have all of your stories for your rush hour drive to work. On today's episode, we've got an update on the astronaut situation. That's right, there are several astronauts that have been stranded in space. Pardon the pun, but I'd like to float an idea past NASA. Get them home. Send them home now, so we'll give that update. Hopefully that happens very soon. And also, Gene Hackman, cause of death possibly revealed. Toxicology reports come in. We'll share what went down, or at least the speculation thereof. And the suit that President Zelensky refuses to wear during a wartime was criticized by a reporter. I call him a reporter very loosely. But now we're going to have an update on that very rude question as Zelensky fights for his and his country's livelihood, and we're worried about him not putting a tie on. Also, speaking of intimacy coordinators, not just with Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively, Mikey Madison, the star and Oscar winner Best Actress of the Oscar-winning Best Picture, Honora, discusses why she decided not to have an intimacy coordinator. And then we'll talk a little bit about toxic positivity as it relates to Justin Baldoni. A big smear campaign was released yesterday, and now all of the other magazines are nibbling on the content, sharing the claims against former employees that Justin Baldoni was toxically positive. What's the difference between that and optimism? We will discuss. And then also a new segment I'm calling Talk Tariffs. That's right, we will be talking tariffs as the French, the Canadian, and the Chinese governments will not be backing down, and this is not going to be good for our wallets. So we'll have all those stories and so much more. It's all coming up right now on The Rush. Well, you guys thought you were working overtime. Here we have Butch and Sonny, the astronauts. They went up in space June of 2024. They were supposed to be there for a week, and they are still floating around, eating that space food. Here's an update from NBC News.
Coming back before long, so, don't make all those plans without me.
We came up prepared to stay long, even though we planned to stay short. That's what we do in human spaceflight. That's what your nation's human spaceflight program is all about, planning for unknown, unexpected contingencies.
We're here. We have a mission. We're just doing what we do every day. And, every day is interesting because we're up in space and it's a lot of fun. So I think the hardest part is, having the folks on the ground have to not know exactly when we're coming back. Know, of course, that we are coming back with Crew 9, but all of that uncertainty, I think, is probably the most difficult part.
All of us have the utmost respect for Mr. Musk, and obviously respect and admiration for our President of the United States, Donald Trump. We appreciate them. We appreciate all that they do for us, for human spaceflight, for our nation, and we're thankful that they are in the positions they're in. The words they've said, politics, that's part of life. We understand that. And there's an important reason why we have a political system and the political system that we do have. And we're behind it 100%. We know what we've lived up here. We know the ins and outs and the specifics that they may not be privy to. And I'm sure that they have some issues that they are dealing with, information that they have that we are not privy to. So when I think about your question, that's part of life. We are on board with it. We support our nation. We support our nation's leaders, and we're thankful for them.
I kind of feel like that's the answer you'd give if you're stuck in space. We love our president. We love Elon Musk. We love anybody who will get us out of space, please. Look, squeaky wheel gets the grease here, and I feel like I'm advocating for them to return more than they are. Maybe they have some, brat kids at home they don't want to see that I don't know about. I don't know, but here I am. I give an update every week. I'm like, get our astronauts home, and they're like, well, we're up here working on things. What the hell are you working on up there? You're just floating around. You know what I mean? All right. So here's the update on Gene Hackman's death, his investigation going on in New Mexico. The gas company finished their investigation, and they say there's no carbon monoxide issues. That was a big question.
This morning, new details deepening the mystery in the now week-long investigation into the suspicious deaths of Gene Hackman and his wife, Betsy Arakawa. The New Mexico gas company confirming extensive testing at the couple's home found no traces of carbon monoxide, only finding a minuscule gas leak in the stove far below a lethal amount.
All right, not a huge update, but we can roll out carbon monoxide poisoning. All right, Justin Timberlake, the cop who arrested him for a DWI, was named Officer of the Year. What a proud moment there for that cop, I guess. I don't know. I mean, look, it's good to keep people, off the streets and safe and everything. I still feel like that was all very sketchy, if you ask me. He claims he had less than a drink or only one martini, but then again, can we trust Justin Timberlake? I mean, he's literally canceled 5 different shows, back spasms, flu. So maybe there's something going on we don't know about. But either way, congrats to the Officer of the Year in New York's town. I guess he's just the SAG. I mean, it's a quite a big honor to be known as the Sag Harbor Police Department Officer of the Year. The award bestowed upon him by Chief Rob Drake. His name's Michael Arkinson. I think he was new to the job, too. So it's only up from here, I guess, or down. Who knows? All right. If you don't know this about me, I am a huge Steve Carell fan. Did you guys know that? One of my greatest influences, Steve Carell. And I just, not just on The Office. I like his serious work. I really like everything about him. And the humanitarian work he does can't go unnoticed. Here he is helping LA students affected by the fires go to prom for free. He's partnering with Alice's Kids, which is providing prom tickets to high school seniors. And here he is making that announcement on their Instagram page. Have a listen to this.
Attention. Attention, all seniors. This is Steve Carell with a very special announcement. I work with a wonderful charity based out of Virginia called Alice's Kids. And Alice's Kids wanted me to let you know that they will be paying for all of your prom tickets. And if you have already paid for your prom tickets, they will reimburse you for your prom tickets. It's a pretty good deal.
So there it is, Gru, right? This is Gru from Despicable Me. So good to know. I mean, gosh, this guy's cool. You know what I like about Steve Carell? There was the town where he's from. I think it's Hingham, possibly Massachusetts. I could have that wrong. They had a general store that was going out of business, and he just quietly bought it. He's a pretty charitable guy, and I don't know if he quite gets the respect he deserves. But I will be here to respect Steve Carell. You can expect 2 things out of me, folks. I'm going to get the astronauts home, and I'm going to respect the hell out of Steve Carell. Now, when it comes to the world of intimacy coordinators, every set is different. You can't force someone to use an intimacy coordinator, or can you? Here, this is a clip from several months ago. It's reemerged. This is Pamela Anderson interviewing Mikey Madison. And Mikey Madison tells Pam Anderson why she decided not to have an intimacy coordinator while shooting Honora. Now, if you haven't watched Honora, it is not exactly a PG movie. This is not Despicable Me. This is a very adult film. It stars a sex worker who works as a stripper and also more than that, as you will see in the film. And she, there's a lot of nudity and a lot of scenes in there that could be of problem to somebody on a set. But here's what she had to say regarding waiving the intimacy coordinator.
You have an intimacy coordinator. That's the big thing now these days, right?
Yeah, well, for our film, we didn't. It was a choice that I made, that the filmmakers offered to me if I wanted to bring on an intimacy coordinator or not. And at the time, Mark Eidelstein, who plays Yvonne in the film, we decided that it would be best just to keep it small with us, and then Sean Baker, the director, and Sammy Kwan, his producing partner, and his wife. And so I think that we were able to just really streamline it, shoot it super quickly, and there are less sex scenes, more sex shots. That's what Sean likes to say. And I think there's a lot of humor involved in them as well. And so it was a very positive experience for me. But also my character is a sex worker.
Right.
And so to me, I had seen Sean's films, and I know his dedication to authenticity. I also wanted to immerse myself in that. So I was ready for it. It requires a lot of her body and her skin, and so I think that, like I've said it before, but I think she wears her nudity more like a costume in a way. Mm-hmm. She presents herself in this sort of hypersexualized way because it's how she makes a living. Yeah. And it's just what she has to do. And so I think I also, as an actress, approached it in a way of like it being a job. Yeah. So I was very comfortable.
My thought with Her Comfort is this. While in their movie it worked out that they didn't need an intimacy coordinator, there's a hell of a lot of ways where something could go sideways on set, and it would be nice to have the coordinator there advocating for the people within the scene. As you saw with the Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni case, even though they had an intimacy coordinator, there were still issues because there was a gray area, according to Blake Lively, that wasn't negotiated because of the scenes. And what crosses one person's line or not isn't always something you might know about. But again, good for her, but advocacy moving forward, I think it's safe just to have someone on set in any of those scenes, just like you would have a stunt coordinator and a SAG rep there, so, but either way, interesting movie if you haven't seen it. So let's move it on off of that topic, and we're going to get into, sort of slowly transitioning into our Blake Lively content for the day. We covered yesterday the LA Times article that came out. I mean, I made a video and I was like, I don't think anyone's going to want to watch this. Video got 80,000+ views so far, where it was just me reading the LA Times article. It was long as hell, which makes you wonder, what's the point? And I don't mean to be conspiratorial and just put on my tinfoil hat here, but what's the point of a long article? Well, you get a lot of SEO, search engine optimization, and the article itself was all over the place. Now, LA Times is supposed to be a pretty reputable news organization. There's New York Times, LA Times, there's a couple that are supposed to be big, but it kind of feels like in today's world, these articles, like, where was it going? What was the point of the article? And when the LA Times makes an article where there's unnamed sources that claim Justin Baldoni had a toxic workplace, and you find all of that, what then happens after that article gets made is that the sub-articles, like the Us Weeklies, the aggregates, will just pull quotes from those articles and then make their own articles. So there's just like the whale, then the fish, then the plankton, and there's just this whole ecosystem that follows a shitty article like that. So now we have Us Magazine saying, former Justin Baldoni employee complains of toxic positivity and focus on Baha'i values, says report. And again, I don't blame Us Weekly. I do the same thing on my YouTube channel where I'll cover an article with my own opinions. And it really just comes down to, we need to have better critical thinking skills. I was talking to my good pals over there at Albertson and Davidson. Did I say that right? They've got, I've been, dyslexic. They've got a great YouTube channel, and I was on their channel yesterday. You guys heard them on here. And on their channel, we were discussing, or maybe it was mine, ethics versus what is legal. And what it comes down to with these articles is, they're not doing anything illegal by sharing unnamed sources, but we need to have better critical thinking skills when we break it down and go, what does this mean? What's the point of this article? And in this case, the point might be just to get some heat off of Blake Lively. So they talk about toxic positivity. We already covered it. What the hell does that even mean? Well, I found a short video here by Alex Howard, therapist, discussing optimism versus toxic positivity. And while we weren't there working with Justin Baldoni, my hunch is he's a pretty optimistic guy, and that shouldn't be mistaken for toxic positivity. Have a listen.
What is the difference between optimism and toxic positivity? Optimism is a sense of hopefulness, a sense of positive anticipation about our future. But there is a lightness and a softness to it. Toxic positivity, on the other hand, is a rigid, more controlling, fixed position about seeing things a certain way. Often when we're in a state of toxic positivity, we're trying to impose those ideas on other people, which often creates a state of rejection and shaming and so on. So being optimistic, being positive is healthy, but it's also responsive, adaptive, and flexible. Toxic positivity, on the other hand, is by definition toxic in the impact that it has.
It's a great explanation here. And what it comes down to is, like, if I'm like sort of toxically positive and you come to me with a problem, say my wife has a problem, Dave, I really feel like, and she's opening up about a problem, and I'm like, everything works out, you're going to be great. That's kind of annoying because it doesn't really address the problem, and it kind of minimizes the problem by saying, hey, just let life work itself out. I doubt that's what we got from Justin Baldoni. But in the world of film and entertainment, there's a million fires you're constantly putting out, whether it heartbeat. Jenny Slate wants a new house while they're shooting, so she has to forego the $15,000 deposit. Was the producer toxically optimistic, or was he, toxically positive, or just optimistic to say, hey, we'll find a new place for you, we'll work it out? So again, you're putting out a lot of fires when you're in a position where you're creating and producing. And for a previous unnamed source to claim that is toxic positivity is interesting, because I wasn't there. I don't know. But, to a person that might be pessimistic or of lower energy, you might see a chipper go-getter like Justin Baldoni and take it as toxic. Funny world we live in. All right, let's shift over to Ukraine. Here we have an interview done on the BBC with regard to the reporter who was, I guess, grilling Zelensky at the Oval Office for not wearing a suit. Now, as Zelensky has said, he doesn't wear a suit because he is in war and he doesn't want to dress up in a suit, kind of like I think other former leaders have kind of taken that same precedent, which is, I'm not wearing a suit. I'm not going to be wearing some dignified outfit when my people are fighting a war. I am here to help them. Here's that interview.
Do you think it did come across as a snarky comment?
Why don't you wear a suit? Why don't you wear a suit? You're at the highest level in this country's office.
And meanwhile, remember, Zelensky's people are fighting for their right to live in Ukraine. A lot of people have tried to sort of switch the argument and say, well, we want peace. They want peace too. They were invaded. Peace will not come until Putin either runs through Ukraine like a meat grinder and just kills and forces everyone to flee and takes over, or Ukraine, with the help of their allies, puts a stop to this terrible dictator. And rather than have that very complicated conversation about what support looks like, we've got a reporter, and I say that very loosely here, questioning the man who did not flee, the man who did not use his daddy's money to claim he had bone spurs to get him out of a war. Question a hero.
And you refuse to wear a suit. Just want to see if do you own a suit?
Oh, I'm sure it did. I know by the thousands and tens of thousands of comments I've gotten on social media, death threats, phone calls. I don't know how they got my number. I think the world took it as a snarky comment. That wasn't really my intention. My intention was just to see if he understood the level of respect that people have.
Listen, I hate it when this happens. Don't piss on my leg and tell me it's raining. Don't pretend like that wasn't just a shitty comment you were making. He was sent in there to sort of rough him up. And Zelensky's response was, I'll put a costume on when this is all said and done. And a lot of people took offense to the idea that he called it a costume. But when you look at the etymology of what costume means from Russian, it is basically a suit, a set of clothes to be worn together, especially a man's matching jacket and trousers. So he wasn't necessarily trying to be snarky. So much was lost almost in translation by Zelensky speaking in his third language, but really dealing with people very much below him that weren't there. And this is one of the problems I have right now with where we are as a country. People would rather dunk on each other than find common ground to agree on and to unify us.
When they go into the Oval Office. Now, a lot of people will say, well, why doesn't Elon Musk wear a suit? Why does he wear a hat? Why does he take his kid into the Oval Office? Well, Elon Musk is in charge of saving, billions of dollars of taxpayer dollars going over to different, organizations. Zelensky has been given, some say, close to $300 billion in cash and military equipment. So
they say cash, but he was given about $150 or so billion in equipment. This idea that it was cash and he's using this money to splurge on vacations. The man is fighting for his country. I'll take that to the grave unless I get information that changes. This is non-negotiable. What is going down right there. And these sort of talking points, these are Kremlin, pro-Putin, pro-dictator talking points.
We think at that point, it does warrant him showing a little bit of respect.
Many people are saying, look, this is a guy at war. He's been leading his country bravely.
Thank you.
Through this war against Russia for 3 years, and probably what he's wearing is the last thing on his mind.
Yeah. And I would agree with that. But to my point, the war is not in the West Wing and the Oval Office in Washington, D.C. The war is back in Ukraine.
All right, this guy's garbage. Absolute garbage. I wanted to share with you guys a clip from the Necessary Conversation podcast. This is done with my pal Chad, who hosts the Game of Roses podcast. He is left-leaning and his parents are right-leaning, very much so. And he airs out conversations he has with his parents about war, which I think are very good. I think even if you're completely on different sides of the spectrum, if you can come together at least to discuss where your political beliefs are with your family without being super hostile, I don't think it's a bad thing. This may trigger some people. It's a pretty wild conversation. Here is, I guess, Chad's dad explaining that Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, was the one who started the war, that Putin, just have a listen.
Dad, who started the war in Ukraine?
Zelensky started the war so that he could clean up.
Okay. How did he start it, Dad? I'm curious what you think. What was the first action he took to start the war?
He went and got all those missiles and shit from the United States of America and prompted Moscow to defend itself.
By invading his country?
No, he had already started the invasion behind the curtain.
He started the invasion of his own country?
Yes. He doesn't give a shit about
Wait a minute. How you're saying Zelensky, somehow conscripted Russian troops to invade his country?
No, he didn't conscript them. He set up the stage for Moscow to have to take action in order to stop him from... Hell, he was bombing the shit out of Moscow.
Okay.
Ukraine was asking for it.
I'm very
How do you get your news?
Where do you get yours? And I know the answer. It's Newsmax.
All right, so there it is. I mean, it's wild, and they both get an equal vote, and that's the world we live in. Let's move it along to Tariff Talk. Should I get a jingle for this? Hey, folks, this is Tariff Talk with Dave, or Talk Tariff, excuse me. And it looks like the French are trying to, in this, I guess this is actually not really tariffs. This is more about Ukraine, but it'll work into Tariff Talk. Here's a report from MSNBC as French President Macron speaks to his nation about global uncertainty.
Now to breaking news. Just minutes ago, French President Emmanuel Macron wrapped up an address to his nation in which he said the threat from Russia is real. NBC's Matt Bodner is following this for us. What were the big takeaways from this message, Matt?
Thank you, Chris. Well, there's a lot in this speech. I think we're going to be coming back to this one quite a bit. It's the kind of speech you would expect from a European leader who appears very concerned, not just about Russia, but about the United States. Let's hit some of the highlights. First of all, there will be a summit of some kind in the near future with European defense officials to start working out what Europe is going to do.
I told you this. They were going to take us out of the group chat. Now they're all having a summit. They're going to go down to Cannes, go on the yachts, get all greased up in the Mediterranean, and we're stuck here.
Help Ukraine, presuming the United States might not. Some of his other points, peace cannot be guaranteed on our own continent anymore. Russia, as you said, is a threat. France needs you, the people, and we will no longer benefit from the post-Cold War peace dividend, which was a very interesting point for him to make.
Pretty wild. That's right. As of this past Friday in the Oval Office, all of the peace deals and treaties have been upended in this world. We are so lucky in the good Lord's year of 2025 to have had virtually no domestic wars other than some terrorism, and we are so lucky to live in such a safe time. I know it doesn't seem that way with the 24-hour news cycle, but statistically, it's the safest that the world has ever been. And yet, that's all put into jeopardy by playing with fire, by taking allies for granted. And that's the world we live in. Here we have more tariff talk. President Trump's 25% tariffs on Canadian and Mexican goods took effect overnight, prompting Canada to retaliate. Now, Trump said he might just ditch these tariffs, which sends a terrible message if you're not even going to stick by your tariff. First of all, I don't think you should have the tariffs, but then to not stick by them, it's like, well, what was the point of all of that if you're not even going to hold it out? So here's your update.
The government is refusing to back down, saying it will play along to the end if the US was bent on waging a trade war.
That cut off in the beginning. That was the Chinese government they're talking about.
Well, that statement from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs here in Beijing comes as China retaliates against new US tariffs that came into effect today, announcing a 10 to 15% hike on US agricultural and food products ranging from wheat, corn, cotton, soybeans, beef, chicken and dairy. China also placed 25 US firms under export and investment restrictions, citing national security concerns. Well, last month, President Trump announced 10% blanket tariffs on all Chinese exports. And last week, he said he would double it, claiming China was not doing enough to stem the flow of fentanyl into the United States.
You know, he's kind of like, you know that dad where, like, if you talk back, they're like you're in timeout for 3 days, and you're like, Dad, and he's like, make it 6, and you're like, come on. He's like, you're in there for a month. That's what the tariffs are. You want to tariff us? We're going to tariff you. Retaliatory tariffs on top of tariffs. I wish I never knew the word tariff.
Earlier, I spoke to one Chinese commentator who said while China's counter tariffs will affect US farmers who are part of President Trump's base, he believes Beijing is being measured in its response and that it doesn't want to blow up or inflame the situation. But with this all playing out on the eve of the National People's Congress, where the government is expected to outline policies to strengthen the economy, there are genuine concerns here that the world's two largest economies are on the path to an all-out trade war.
Again, a trade war that did not need to exist. And look, it's not to say we should be allowing fentanyl to just pour into the country, but is this going to change things? I mean, certainly there's only, 40 total pounds of fentanyl came in from the Canadian border last year. So it's not about that. To be quite honest, there's a lot of cynical people out there, conspiratorial, thinking Trump's trying to tank the economy so that they can buy into the stock market when it's a little bit lower. I know that sounds crazy, but folks are really wondering, like, what is the deal? What's the deal with these tariffs? I mean, other countries are going, well, what do we even need to do? We don't even know what we need to do to please this guy. He's all over the place. Well, who's going to be hurt by it all? The American citizen. That's who. And folks, here to fight for you. If you have any updates, coverage you want me to talk about, please shoot me a DM. Otherwise, we will be live like this morning covering the Justin Baldoni case, as there's a phone number that you can call into that will be streaming the court case. We will be covering it live on our channel, so make sure that you're subscribed on YouTube to check that out. And then we'll be back this afternoon. So as always, I'm Dave Neal. This was The Rush.